It was a bright Sunday afternoon when my son, Daniel, messaged me to let me know he was bringing his girlfriend, Chloe, over. I hadn't heard from him in weeks, so my heart leapt when I saw his message pop up on my phone. After all, Daniel, now 30 years old, had always been reserved and quiet. He didn't talk much about his relationships, so when he told me he was in one, I was curious. But at the same time, a little worried. Would this woman be someone I could get along with? The doorbell rang, snapping me out of my thoughts. I rushed to open the door, a smile on my face, though my nerves fluttered inside me. Daniel stood there as calm as ever, with a woman by his side. Chloe. "Hi, Mom," Daniel greeted, giving me a quick hug. "This is Chloe, my girlfriend." Chloe smiled politely, though I couldn't help but notice the slight coldness in her eyes. She was dressed in a sleek black leather jacket, tight pants, and high-heeled boots. She looked like she belonged in a magazine, but something about her smile didn't feel warm. Still, I tried to push those thoughts aside and be the welcoming mother I'd always aspired to be. "Welcome, Chloe," I said, my voice betraying only a hint of nerves. "It's so nice to finally meet you." "Thanks," Chloe replied, her voice smooth, almost rehearsed. "It's nice to meet you, too." I led them to the living room, where the conversation seemed a bit forced at first. Chloe didn't make much effort to engage. She kept her eyes mostly on her phone, scrolling through it absent-mindedly. Daniel, ever the quiet one, didn't seem bothered by it, but I could tell he was uneasy. There was an awkwardness that hung in the air, like a thick cloud that no one knew how to clear. I did my best to keep the conversation going. "So, Chloe, how do you and Daniel meet? What do you like to do together?" Chloe glanced up for a moment, her lips curving into a tight smile. "Oh, we met through a mutual friend at a party last year. It was fun. We both enjoy fine dining and traveling." Fine dining. Those words stayed with me. I had worked as a chef for years, and it was something I was very passionate about. But Chloe's tone made it clear she wasn't talking about any humble dining experiences. She seemed to expect the best, the most expensive, the most exclusive. I tried to keep the conversation light. "That sounds nice. I'm sure you two will have many wonderful adventures together." But my mind kept racing. There was something about Chloe's demeanor that didn't sit right with me. As the night went on, I couldn't shake the feeling that she was more concerned about appearances than actually connecting with us. After dinner, I asked Daniel if he wanted to stay for a while. He agreed, but Chloe looked uncomfortable. She barely touched her food and kept glancing at the clock. Eventually, she stood up and said she was going to take a walk. Daniel looked a bit torn, but followed her outside. I stayed behind, cleaning up the kitchen, wondering how long this uneasy tension would last. When they returned, Chloe's mood had worsened. She seemed frustrated, and I could tell by the way she crossed her arms that she wasn't happy. Daniel tried to ease the tension, but it was clear something had been bothering her. "Mom, I'm sorry, but we need to go," Daniel said softly, his eyes downcast. "Chloe's not feeling too well?" I nodded, trying to hide my disappointment. "Of course, Daniel. I hope she feels better soon." As they left, I stood by the door, watching them walk away, feeling a sense of unease. Something didn't feel right, but I didn't know what it was yet. All I could do was wait for the next time I would see Chloe and try again. The next few weeks passed without much contact. I received a text from Daniel here and there, but Chloe didn't seem interested in reaching out. I found myself wondering if that was a red flag. Could it be that she wasn't as invested in Daniel as he was in her? Then one day, out of nowhere, Chloe called me. "Hi, Rebecca. It's Chloe," she said, her voice unusually bright. "I was wondering if you could help me with something." I was taken aback. We had never spoken on the phone before. What could she possibly need from me? "Of course," I replied cautiously. "What's going on?" "There's this dress I really want to buy, but it's a bit expensive," Chloe said without hesitation. "I was wondering if you could help me out. You know, just this once?" My jaw dropped. This was the first time she'd ever asked me for anything, and it was a big ask. I was shocked by how casual she was about it. There was no please, no thank you, just an expectation that I would comply. I'm sorry, Chloe, but I don't have that kind of money right now, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. Her tone shifted instantly, no longer polite. Well, I thought you'd be more understanding. After all, Daniel is your son. Don't you want to see him happy? I was taken aback by her sudden change in demeanor. It was as if she was manipulating me, using my son as a way to get what she wanted. I understand, but that's not something I can do, I said firmly. Maybe you should talk to Daniel about it. The conversation ended abruptly, and I was left feeling uneasy. Chloe's sense of entitlement was starting to show. I couldn't believe how forward she had been, how quickly she assumed I would just give in to her demands. That night, I shared my concerns with Daniel. He listened quietly, but I could see he was uncomfortable. He never liked to confront people, especially Chloe. Mom, I understand how you feel, Daniel said, his voice low. But Chloe comes from a wealthy family. She's used to getting things her way. I'm sorry, I know it's not easy. I sighed, feeling both frustrated and helpless. I didn't want to be the type of mother who meddled in her son's life, but Chloe's behavior was starting to cross a line. I couldn't ignore it anymore. A few weeks later, Daniel and Chloe came over again. This time, I had prepared a meal, hoping to create a warm atmosphere and maybe, just maybe, break the ice. But as soon as Chloe walked in, I could tell something was off. She barely acknowledged me and immediately sat down on the couch, pulling out her phone. Daniel seemed uncomfortable too, but he didn't know what to say. I made my way to the kitchen, hoping the food would ease the tension. I set the table and called them in, but as soon as Chloe saw the pizza I had made, her face twisted in disgust. Ugh, pizza again, she complained, rolling her eyes. I was hoping for something more sophisticated. Daniel looked at her, his face a mixture of embarrassment and frustration. I could feel my patience slipping away. Who did she think she was, coming into my home and criticizing my cooking? I thought you might like it, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I made it myself. It's a family recipe. But Chloe was unimpressed. I don't eat that kind of food. It's so basic. Can't you order something better? Her words stung. I worked hard to make that meal, and her rude attitude felt like a slap in the face. I couldn't believe how entitled she seemed, as if she were royalty and everyone else existed to serve her. Chloe, we don't need to order anything else, I said firmly. This is what we have. She huffed, clearly unhappy, but reluctantly sat down. The meal passed in silence, with Chloe barely touching her food. I could feel the tension building, thick and suffocating. After dinner, I couldn't keep quiet any longer. Daniel, I need to talk to you about Chloe, I said softly, pulling him aside. Her behavior, it's not right. She's disrespectful, and it's starting to affect me. Daniel sighed, looking torn. I know, Mom, but you don't understand. Chloe, she's all I have right now. I don't want to lose her. Daniel, sometimes you have to let go of people who aren't treating you well, I said gently. I want you to be happy, but I don't think Chloe is the right one for you. Not if she's treating you and me like this. He didn't say anything for a long while. The weight of the situation hung heavy between us. Finally, he spoke up. I'll think about it, Mom. I promise the next few weeks were a blur. I kept thinking about what I had said to Daniel. I knew I couldn't keep quiet forever. I needed to speak the truth even if it hurt. Chloe's attitude wasn't just a minor issue. It was a sign of something deeper, something that could tear Daniel's happiness apart. And then one evening, I got a call from Daniel. He sounded different, more certain. Mom, he said, his voice filled with a mix of relief and sadness. I ended things with Chloe. I didn't know what to say. Part of me was relieved, but another part of me was sad for him. I knew how much Daniel had cared for her. I'm sorry it didn't work out, I said softly, but I'm proud of you for making the right decision. Daniel paused before speaking. Thanks, Mom. I think I just realized I deserve better. I felt a sense of pride for my son. knowing he had the strength to walk away from a relationship that wasn't good for him. And while it hurt to see him go through this, I knew it was the right decision. From that point on, Daniel seemed lighter. He began to reconnect with old friends and pursue the things he loved. It was clear he was healing, though I knew it would take time. And Chloe? Well, she disappeared from our lives. I never heard from her again. I wasn't sure what had happened to her, and frankly, I didn't care. What mattered was that Daniel was starting fresh, and this time he was doing it on his own terms. I still think about that night, about Chloe's demands, her coldness, and how quickly she expected things from us. But most of all, I think about the lesson Daniel learned, that sometimes walking away is the best thing you can do for yourself. In the end, he found someone better, someone who loved him for who he was, not for his money or what he could provide. And for me, that was all I